Good evening, everybody. I guess they saved the best for last. Thank you very much. Now, what's interesting here is that these gentlemen actually segued what I'm going to talk about, so it actually worked out perfectly in that sense. So for those of you who stayed later, you're getting a lot of value, but I don't think you guys understand the power that you have as a real estate agent, right? I don't know if I have a clicker, but you can press the page on for my, hopefully they have my stuff up. But I want to share a couple of things. There's two things that's very important as agents. One, how to work with investors, right? And they kind of talk to you about that, but it should be a big part of your business. People don't realize investors are always buying no matter what kind of market we're in, right? Next page, please. Why should you listen to me? This is just a couple of facts. I'm not even going to go through all that. This gives you an idea of kind of what I've done. I've worked with guys like a Russell, other developers, things of that nature, things that actually Brian Karp mentioned and those type of things. Next page, please. So how to work with investors. One more click. Thank you. So here's the key thing, and I don't know if you listened to what Russell and the team was saying. You want to make yourself valuable to an investor, right? You should have knowledge that's viable and that's usable. So that type of knowledge I'm talking about is one, learning the math. They start to tell you what's important for them as investors, right? Understanding what kind of deal makes sense for an investor, for them to work with you and say, I have something of value. I was talking to a young lady earlier. She's like, how do you kind of get with these investors? I said, look, at the end of the day, trying to go to them and say, can I list your property? They probably have somebody already for that. Where you're going to bring value to them is saying, I have a deal, right? The guys just mentioned it to you. We come across things that people don't know about before anybody else does many a times. So if I could bring that to an investor, and now they're teaching you, which I'm going to do my second part of my conversation, how to do it with them, but you can bring that to an investor and say, hey, I got this deal that makes sense for you. Now, obviously, me, like he mentioned, I ask questions all the time. I say, hey, if I'm bringing you this deal, can I get the listing? I'm always going to ask that question. So whether they say yes or no, I don't care. I'm going to keep asking. And I'm going to make it a reason. I'm going to make it, almost undeniably why they should work with me if I give them that property. Because if you build enough investor clients, listen, at the end of the day, I have other guys to bring this to, other women, men and women. So either you give me the listing or I'm bringing it to my next person. And you try to get a short list of those people that can do those types of things. You actually have to market to investors. You have to find who the cash buyers are. I'll give you a little inside tip. Everybody seen a house bought by cash, by an LLC? Yes, no, maybe so? You guys have access to public listing, public information. So guess what? If I go onto the things and look, hey, who bought a property under an LLC, and they bought it cash, or they bought it with hard money, which you can find that out because you'll know who the lenders are, you'll know that that's an investor. Now I can go reach out to that person and say, hey, I'd love to add you to my buyers list. I get off-market deals, or even if you don't, not yet. And listen, you're speaking things into the future. I get these types of deals, so why don't you tell me what it is that you're looking for? What's your buy box? What's your acquisition criteria? Start speaking the language of that investors speak so they know that you know what you're talking about. And again, be that valuable resource and understand their goals and challenges, right? If they're trying to work into a certain area and you know the area well, or you may have a relationship with like the legislator or the buildings department, whatever, say, hey, look, I know you're having this challenge to get this property zoned or getting into this area. I can make a connection for you, or start to build those connections so that way you can be of value to them. Be reliable, be in the know the things that are happening. So for instance, there's things that are always happening in certain areas, in certain neighborhoods or whatever the case is, knowing what's coming, right? Going to committee meetings. A lot of people don't realize you can go to the meetings that they have public hearings, and you find out what's going on in the neighborhood, what they're voting on, what they're allowing. Are they going to allow upzoning? Are they going to do different things? You could try to find those things out and now be value to these investors. One of the most beautiful things is to know your numbers too, and know the market that you're working in. Know it well, because what I became at one point was the go-to person when they asked me, how much is it per square foot in this neighborhood? How much can I rent it for? I knew those answers off the tip of my tongue. As soon as they called, I was like, what you need to know? And that's why I became a resource to them, right? And that's why I was able to work with some of the largest developers in New York City and list their condos, list their rental properties, their biggest projects. To give you an example, the last thing I did, I rented out, I was the marketing agent for a 135-unit rental building in Long Island City. Just so you guys know, that's the equivalent of like having an $8 million listing. FYI, right? So the numbers that Lucianne was talking about, you can get those numbers doing large rental buildings and being there. Now, Russell, we're going to talk because if you own in rental portfolios, I want to rent those out for you, by the way. So let's talk about that, right? Next slide, please. So one more click. Now, they just told you, why should you become an investor, right? One of the craziest things, when I became a real estate agent, one of the reasons I did, my father said, hey, guys, people always need a place to live. You like commission-type jobs. Listen, I see the guys I'm working with. So funny story, Lucianne told you she worked at City Habitats. We worked there at the same time. My father actually worked for the owner of City Habitats, and that's how he knew what they were doing. He's like, look, why not just take a shot? And 20-some-odd years later, here I am, right? But the key thing was, I said to myself, my brother's an investor. I see the lifestyle that he lives. I want to live that same lifestyle, but let me start off as a real estate agent so that way I can learn the game. And I thought I was going to learn how to be an investor doing this. We all know that's not the truth. They give us the basics, right? We need to learn how to operate at a level, one, that we're doing great business, but also adding stuff to ourselves. Again, some of you, I saw some people, I don't know if they're still here, raise their hands. They wanted to be selling real estate till they're 90. God bless you. If you do, great. But do it because you want to, not because you have to. Brian even alluded to the fact that he's financially free at 38 or whatever the case is, and he's still hustling. But guess what? He's hustling because he wants to, not because he has to. Let me tell you the power of being able to go into a listing, going to an investor, going to anybody, and knowing I don't need you. I can pick to choose to work with you or not. There's a different energy that you have when you go into that listing presentation knowing you want to give it to me? Great. You don't? That's your problem. I have enough business, I have enough things going on in my life that I don't need your listing because people can smell desperation on you, FYI. Right? Now, some of the things they actually mentioned, and that's why I said it segued right there. Listen, we get tax implications as a business owner, like sole proprietors. I don't know if you LLC'd your business. You should, by the way, as a realtor. But owning properties as an investor, we get tax benefits. We get what he mentioned, depreciation. There's cost analysis. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do that you can't do if you don't own these properties, right? Even if it's having a bad year, it still helps you because let's say you had a great year as a realtor, but your property's acting a fool, you still can write off all those things and offset the income that you're making as a realtor. It also makes you a better agent, by the way, because now you understand how to look at things, how to speak to even residential owners. Like your retail sellers, you can speak to them the language of, hey, you're asking for this money, but you can't do that because FYI, the investors are paying this, they're doing this, I can sell that. All those things make you better as an agent because you understand the game at a deeper level. So you're no longer an elementary agent. You're beyond even going to college. You now have a PhD as a realtor, right? Because now you understand the game from a whole different level. And I can guarantee you only about 1% to 2% of agents know how to work with investors, let alone are investors themselves. It's probably I think the gentleman said there's 1.5 million agents in the country now. Probably 0.1% of them are investors themselves, which is insane. Just so you guys know, during 2008, when I didn't understand the concepts that he was talking about, how to leverage and partner with other investors and things of that nature, I made a couple individuals, talking about tens of millions of dollars after the downturn, right? Because there was so much inventory on the market, I knew how to go get it. I made a good living, but they made so much more. And it was not at that point, I'm sitting at the closing table, I realized, what am I doing? I'm getting, 20, 30, and even if I got a $50,000 check, great. The other person's getting $700,000. I don't like that math. I want to be on the other side of the table. Learn how to do those things. Be creative, right? And like I said, it could be an exit strategy. I know I didn't want to sell for the rest of my life. That's just me. Like, I like vacations. I like hanging out at my kids' games. I like doing all that kind of stuff. So I like to create passive income so that way I know when I'm doing those things, I'm still getting paid. When you're not doing that, you're on your phone all the time. You're on vacation. You can't even enjoy a vacation because you're checking on deals. Just true story. And you can ask my wife. On our honeymoon, I had to ask, I said, I need 30 minutes a day, but I need to check on these deals. Now, most women look at me like I would cut his head off. But I also told my wife this is what's paying for the honeymoon. So she allowed it for the 30 minutes, right? So by show of hands, how many of you want to be investors as agents? Right? Like, don't take this for granted. They actually gave you a blueprint. They actually was able to share some of the things I want to share with you. They're giving you an opportunity to say, I could work with investors to get a piece of the pie. I learned early. I have a guy, I call him Uncle Tommy. He was one of the developers I worked with, right? He literally smacked me in the back of my head one day. He's like, what are you doing? You're making all this money. What are you doing with the money? I was like, well, I can't find a deal because I only have a certain amount saved. He's like, but you have me. I have money. He said, all I need you to do is find a deal, tie it up, at least get put 10% of your skin in the game so I know you're in the game, and I'll fund the rest. When I told you that was an epiphany for me, I'm like, I could have had probably multiple properties all this time had I understood that concept. So there are, again, there's different agents. You guys have teams. You have friends. You have family. You guys can put money together and buy investments. It makes so much sense that you don't do it, especially the fact that you can get deals that no one knows about, right? Like he mentioned, you might have a friend or family member, hey, my grandmother wants to sell this property, and they realize, listen, the property's a hot mess. They're only going to get but so much on the market for it, but as an investor, you see the possibilities. Hey, they need to sell for $450 because it needs $100,000 worth of work. I'll buy it for $450. I'll get somebody to help me get the $100,000 for work, and now we're selling it for $700,000-800,000, and we're all going home a lot happier. I don't know about you. I got into this business not to make $50,000, $70,000 a year, and that, just so you know, the average agent in America makes, I think it was $52,000, and that's the only reason it's $52,000 is because of cities like New York and San Francisco and Miami. If you were to go in the Midwest, it's probably like $25,000 a year. I don't know about you, and the fact that you guys are still here, I know you don't want to be regular. You want to be great. Take advantage of working with investors, making them your partner at a certain point, and then investing yourself. Be like Brian, right? I'm not going to tell you how many doors I own because my wife would kill me if I share that kind of information, but the reality is it's a necessary piece of being a great agent. Having extra money, not worrying about, especially when it's a downturn, there's crazy things going on, and you still got rent checks or something hitting on the first of the month, no matter what. Anybody want that? Yes, no, maybe so? So I appreciate that. You can go to the next slide. This is kind of a little my contact information. Just so you guys know, I'm not selling anything either. I actually just love being a resource. I love being a coach to people. I love helping them. So if you want to reach out to me and ask some questions on how I started to become an investor myself as an agent, what the realities are, and the things of that nature. I'll share this one thing one of my mentors shared with me. He said, buy a building for every bill. I want you to remember that. Buy a building for every bill. Because at the end of the day, if you can do that, you live financially free and you have a life that you can't believe. And you don't have to be on your phone all the time. One day my kid asked me, he's like, Dad, you're always on your phone. And I felt, when I tell you my heart sank, because I got into the business not to do that, right? So that's when I realized, hey, passive income makes sense. Now, if you guys have any questions, feel free. I'll be here for a few minutes. Feel free to pick my brain while you got me here. Otherwise, scan the QR code, take a picture of that, hit me up, follow me on Instagram. I was actually honored to see that Russell actually followed me before. I was like, I knew him, and I didn't realize I wasn't following him. I felt bad. I was like, oh, damn. We put value out there. We get it back. Please, if there's anything you take from me, please be an investor as an agent. Use the power you have of getting listings and getting information before anybody else, and use it to be better for yourself and your family. Does this all make sense? Yes or no? I can't hear you. All right, so we're going to end with, I am an investor. So let's repeat after me. I am an investor. No, do it like we're all gonna be rich in a few years from now, and we know that we're gonna have this. I am an investor. Thank you. That's my time. Everybody have a great night.